Alright, so we saw how the Shabbos came out right with the Bora Yisborach. But that's a ticketry of Init She'ena Nagia Klal Le'atzmusay. And with that we answered Shaila that how can it be Ani Hashem Lo Shonisi, the Etzem Yisavas bringing about of all the elements should have caused Ezeshu Shinoi Bo Yisborach. So we say that because it was Ha'ora Be'alma Chitzenius, Ha'ora Chitzenius Bavad, we brought the Dina from Dibur in Moshel Eitzos Kwechas Sa'odam. But that's the Ha'ora Ki Chitzenius, and if we take it in the Nimshol Amaila, then it means that the Eivish is not Nitvas, V'ina Mishlabish Klal B'inyan Ha'isavas. Now, Mamira, Ani Avai Loisha, Eloisha Nisi. We saw that if he said, Yuvan Tam Vadas of the Ramak, what he said that the word Ein Seif refers to the Etzem Aboirei, and not to anything which comes about from him, or Nimshach or Netzal. We saw that the Ramak doesn't want to use the word Ein Seif, but that's Maramis Afayin and Shablikvul, only in reference to the Eivishter himself, but not a thing which is Mesuvav, meaning that it's caused by Yeshu Derech by the Eivishter, because he is he alone is the Kadmain and the Ein Seif. Now the fact that the Rebbe says that Hu Levadei Kadmain for Ein Seif, well, that tends to indicate that however we're going to come to the Maskana in reference to the Maila of the expression Ein Seif, that Sof Kosof it's going to be it's going to need to completely fulfill, completely back up the concept of Ein Seif. Have you got some meaning there with that? So maybe we could leave it alone. To back up completely the Indian of the Ein Seif, we're going to need the concept Balavochi of Ein Loit Tchila. In other words, that the Amitius Musag of Ein Seif is only going to be strengthened, the Gabi other Inyonim, the other concepts, if ultimately will also be Metzarif to it the concept of Kadmain. And that's why the Rebbe says here that it's the Ramak Steiner that Ein Seif is usable only when it gets to the Atzmas is going to include in itself that he's taken the Kadmain, and that's why we saw that the Kadmain is Ein Lo Tchila B'Emetz. Ki Hine Inyan Ein Seif Hu Bebeis Dvorim. We saw at the end of the last year that the concept and the term Ein Seif implies two factors or inyonim. Ha'alef shehu bechinas Ein Seif lehispashtusei, shezeh inyan Ein Seif bligvu, she'Ein Seif lehispashtusei. So the first concept of Ein Seif means something which can continue without end. And the word for continuation in our context, in this particular context, is the word ispashtas. Now normally the word ispashtas is in contrast to the idea of an etzem. We said there's a very essential entity, and then there's a dover which is expands or somehow or another illuminates from the essence, from the etzem. And that's what we call ispashtas. In other words, ispashtas means, generally speaking, a non-essential or a non-entity essentiality expansion or radiation. That's the word ispashtas. So Ein Seif ispashtusei means something that can illuminate and radiate and expand without end. So the first Indian in Ein Seif that we're paying attention to is that unending expression or expansion of an entity, or that's called Ein Sof. So Rebbe says that includes in itself the concept of Bli Gvul, because if you say that something is going to just keep expanding and expressing itself ad Ein Sof, then that means it's not limited. It has in itself the union of unlimited expressionability. In other words, it can just keep going and revealing itself without end. However, we're going to see that in the concept of Bli Gvul, that's a certain definitional idea of the union of Bli Gvul. She'ein Sof Bli Gvul, she'ein Sof lishpashtusei. It just has no end to its ability to express itself or to reveal its expansion. Ve'amitius inyan zeh, Tainus the Ramak, the genuineness or amitius of that Ein Sof lishpashtusei shayach rak ba'atzmus mam, applicable only to the atzmus. Hagam, the kol etzem bilti mispashe. L'chora, if you're referring to atzmus mahusei of the Boirei Yisborach, then you can't use an expression which implies ispashtas, because etzem is not mispashe. Now that's, we have a cloud brought in many places in Siddur, that kol etzem eino mishchalik ve'eino mispashet. Hispashtas being, as we pointed out, expression in the form of luminescence or ha'ora. Etzem, the very essential entity of which is called a etzem, doesn't do that. A etzem doesn't expand in the form of a ha'ora. A ha'ora is something which goes off from an etzem. For example, we have the shemesh. We say the shemesh is a etzem bilti mispashet, but the shemesh is a etzem bahiri. It's a illuminator, what we call a luminary. It's a source of its very essence is illuminated entity. That which goes off from it we call oyer. So that oyer, hameir mi hashemesh, nikro ispashtas. That's called a ispashtas. It's not the pshat that the shemesh itself is mispashet. The shemesh remains what it is. The oyer is mispashet mi hashemesh. And as we find in all inyonim which we call them etzem, the etzem is not mispashet, but the ha'ora is mispashet mi ha'etzem. And the same with the etzem hanefesh. And we say that the etzem hanefesh, albeit we said earlier that it has a certain shaykhus to the guf, and to a certain extent it's mugdar, it's expressed within the guf. However, the etzem itself doesn't enter into all the evarim and all the koiches of the body. It's only a ha'ora b'derech tzimtzum mi ha'nefesh, which enters the evarim and which becomes eventually the koiches, and even from the koiches even more mispashet, it becomes ein shalavushim. But that's what we saw being an adibur. Adafar, the etzem itself is not mispashet. And even if we take, for example, that fluorescent light, or that burning element which is inside there, well, that's not mispashet in the whole room. What is mispashet is a ha'ora which goes off from it, and that's mispashet in the room. So the word ispashtas is not applicable to an essential entity in its own right. So how much more so l'mayla? You can't say that the Eibishter is mispashet. The Eibishter himself is not mispashet, but things nimshochim mimenu, and they are mispashet mimenu. And so when we say Ein Sof, we mean something which has been mispashet mimenu, dainu, ha'or, or ha'ora mi'atzmas, and we can say that's mispashet at Ein Sof. However, from the fact that the Ramak insists that the expression Ein Sof refers to the Atzmus HaBoirei himself, then we have to say that he would take that cloud of something which is mispashet ad Ein Sof and indirectly connect it with the Eibishter, with the Boirei. So that's what we're now going to see how he does that. He said, Hagam de kol etzem bilti mispashet. So it's not applicable on the very atzmas, the expression hispashtos adein say. Mikol mokim amitius noisei hoinyan dein seif lispashtosei shayach rak beprinasa atzmas. He said, nonetheless, the truth of the matter is that the genuine noisei hoinyan. Now, noisei hoinyan means the concept of the matter, literally the bearing aspect, the aspect which bears in itself. Well, that matter of Ein Seif Lispashtusei is applicable to the Atzmas only. Now, how can that be? You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't say Ein Seif Lispashtusei applies to something which is not mispashet. We can't say דבר כזה. אלא מאי? The Indian is that Atzmusa Yisborach is so transcendent and so all laudated, the Atzmus, that it's not child to say that there's anywhere where the Atzmus is not. And that's a famous statement which we'll bring shortly from the Tikkun Zohar. Leis asar panui mi minei. There's no point or spot or area, whatever you like to call it, where he is not there. And when we say he, we mean him. We mean the Atzmus himself. And therefore, it's not short to say the Atzmus is mispashet, because he didn't start in one point and spread out to other points. Over the noisei, the concept, the idea of ispashtusei applies yet to him, because he's just everywhere and anywhere. In other words, it's not child to say any point where Atzmus is eneber benimta. And we're not talking about oyer or dover mispashim. Atzmus imam. Adafa, the Rebbe says, Kumta is that mitzad amitius concept of musag of Atzmus, then Ein Seif lispashtusei applies to him, but not in the word is pashtus in the normal sense, but Ein Seif le himotza'ei. Yeah, and therefore, even though in other cases you that have been again to the word is pashtus, in him you can't say that word is pashtus in the normal sense, but that's for sure that he is mispashet everywhere. But he's not mispashet. He just happens to be there. So that's what the Rebbe said, that the emerson noisei ho'inya of Ein Seif lispashtusei. The emerson conceptual musag of Ein Seif shayach rak b'prinz ha'atzman. Ki masha nertzal v'nizgala min ha'atzmas. He said anything which was brought close or revealed itself from the Atzmas, Hagam de Shom, Shaykh in his pashtas, there you can already talk about it in show. Yeah, his pashtas, because it's already a thing which has come about from him. Hine ein ze bohem inyan atzmi mitzad atzmo. He said, oh, but that what they would be nimshach la'ein seif. He said, that's not in them essential inyan mitzad their own selves. The miyachash yesh lahem tchilo, that since after all they begin at any given point from Hashem, from the Rebbe, yesh lahem tichlo. That's like a play on Loshen. Mekivash yesh lahem tchilo, yesh lahem tichlo, which means the two offices. Since they have a beginning, then they must have some end. They must have some finality. Tichlo, mitzad atzmo, in their own very selves. Varak b'pchinas ha'atzmas mamish, only in the very essence of Hashem shayach loima ein seif b'emes, that you can say the concept of ein seif b'emes liyoisei b'pchinas kadmoin ha'amite she'ein loim tchila u'mamela ein loim tichlo. Here we see the amazing thing. The Sokos of the Ramak is mitzaref to his whole principle, the concept of ein loim tichlo, because other inyanim can be ein seif, and that's what we're about to mention. Well, that's what the Ramami Panotain. He said there can be certain things which are ein seif of only berotzena haboire of not mitzad atzmon that they're ein seif. And if He said all those inyanim which are misgala from the Atmas, it could be that he wanted that they should go mitadei tam. He wanted they should go adain. Ain't safe. Oh, but they're not the emissary in you for ain't safe. They're only ain't safe mitad another power in them. Dying or the Atmas, but they're not mamish ain't safe. They are, but they are. Who is the emissary? Ain't safe. The emissary ability to go without end, kipshuta, mitzad its very self. Well, that's the Indian of the Atmas. And where does it get that power from that it can go? Mamish mitzad Atmas, ain't safe, because it's ain't like tchila and it's kadmai. And he said, therefore, being as it is, kadmai, therefore ain't like tchila, ain't like tichla. He's the immediate of what you can say that play on Loshan, which is an amitius or musa kamura. And so therefore he says, on that basis, she'ein tchila, mamela ein loy tichla. In brackets, ela she'ein shayach loyma boy ain't safeless pashtusay, but poyal. Or we can't possibly say on the Eibishter, on Atzmusay, that's ain't safeless pashtusay, but poyal ke'ein of a penis is pashtus from chocher. Avol noisei inyan ho'ein safe shayach loyma rak b'prinas Atmas man. In other words, you can't say it's ain't safeless pashtusay, because he's not mispashet. Yeah, you can only say it's ain't safe lehimatzu usay. Yeah, and mele, it's like the concept of his pashtus, but it's not. And so he said, why is it we say to all these other inyanim ain't safe lis pashtuso? Because they begin somewhere. And since they begin somewhere, they're eish pashtus. They come from something. Something which comes from something is eish pashtus. And mamira bohem ain't safe lis pashtuso. In the Eibishter, ain't safe lis pashtuso, but the word is pashtus is borrowed. Because he's not mispashing. He's just what he is. I ain't safe of Havuas because he's ain't like Tchila, he's Betzim Kadmai. And Mamil is a Piladike and the Ramak is Maskim that Papatai. Amiti Satoya of the Abish is ain't like Tchila Kadmai. Aber mit dieser Tam, die Inif and ain't safe, is used by the Mukubalim. And Mamil, the ain't safe applies to him because they mean ain't safe is Pashtusi when they say ain't safe. And he times that ain't safe is Pashtusi is shaykh in the Eibishter in a borrowed way. You can say ain't safe, auch upon him, lehimatza usa im loy bederach is Pashtu. That's why he would time that the word ain't safe is dafke applicable. Li Atzmusay, Mashen came all the other inyonim, would they come out from the Eibishter, but they're gile vish pashtas, and that's what he says now. Avo Masha nimtov nertzal mi ito yizborach hareinu shai pekinus ain't safe bietem. It can have ain't safe. Ki im shein pekinus ain't safe per atzeinoi levad. He said they're all ain't safe while the Eibishter wants it that way. Michadezi. Tama Yadur Leachmas is Borach. He wants it. Certain things should go off for him, and they should keep going. Are they? Ain't safe. In Mamira, there ain't safe Lish Pashtuso. The emissary expression ain't safe Lish Pashtus applies to them, but not to him. Lo. And Mamira said, therefore, correct is the Ramak in that, and the Ramami Pano in that prat. Akamasha Kosu. Aramami Pano, Shehein Nitzchim Berotzen Abeira Ilabat. They are nitzchiyim, like he said, kol nitzchi, lav davki shehu kadmein. Avo kol kadmein hu nitzchi b'derech mamela. And he said, therefore, there are certain inyanim that they're nitzchim, but they're not kadmeinim. They're nitzchim b'rotzena aboira. That's exactly the Ramah Miponos Taina. So now says the Rebbe, now the Rebbe puts in a diuk in that gufa, which is going to become very important to us as we go along. Well, kamoi bo'oyer, shehu b'chinas ain't safe mipnei shehu me'ein hamoer. Ba'inu, shekachu b'retzeni is barach she'iyeh b'chinas deveikus. Avaloi mitzad achma. So now here's a tricky one, which is going to become really a key factor in the whole argument and the development of the argument as we go along, and that is Uyer ain't safe. Now we're going to see that this is the big uftu, the Arizal of a Be'emes. Not only the Arizal of a Be'emes in Chassidus Chabad, but in the words of the Alter Rebbe, Be'ike in the famous Igeres, over there in Tanya and in other Mekaymes, other drushim from the Alter Rebbe, are the concept of Oyer Ein Sefer, this idea that Be'emes, what was meir from the Atzmas, Betchila, and even more than Betchila, there's a certain aspect of where a Korul B'techa Atzmas, which is Ha'ora Bilvad, it's a luminescence, but it's called Oyer Ein Seif. So the Rebbe gives that here as a dukma, Lafi Shittas Ramak, that there can be certain inyonim, what they're nitzchiyim. Barotzen Haboirei, which is backed up by the Ramah Mipano, with his famous statement, Oyer Shehu B'chinas Ein Seif, Mipnei Shehu Miyein HaMoer. Ba'ainu, Shekachu B'retzeini Yisborach, Shiyeh B'chinas HaDveikes. So now we're going to see as we go along that there's an inyan for Oyer, according to the Alter Rebbe, which was Miskala Mino Atzmas, Afilu Koydem HaTzimtzum, Afilu long before the Tzimtzum. And that was B'divrei Arizal, that's the famous Oyer Elyoin Poshut Shehoyer Mamala Es Kol Hamatzi is the inyan for Oyer, and that Oyer is called Oyer Ein Seif. Aber not that the inyan from the Oyer is Ein Seif Be'etzem Atzmusei Mitzadat Atzmusei. In a way it is. We're going to see later on. Even Masuyam, it is. We're going to have our cake and eat it too. However, Be'emes it's not, says the Rebbe here. Be'emes Elokach. Amadua. Because it's only a Oyer, HaNetzo V'Nimshach Mimeni. Yesh Lezeh beginning. If it has a beginning, then it can't just be Amiti as a Ein Seifiyos. In came, why do we say that it does have in itself the inyan from Ein Seif? So he said, because it's Me'ein HaMoer. Here we see this famous concept of the Oyer Me'ein HaMoer. Well, that's the great uftu of the Alter Rebbe Be'emes. Well, that's the Lashon of the Alter Rebbe B'Lashoner HaTorah in this famous Igeres and in other Mekaymes, in Tanya itself, and in the works of the Alter Rebbe. He says that the Ike is Galus from the Atzmas, which is called Oyer. And he said, why do we call it Oyer? And why do we give it the term and the name Oyer? Because one of the reasons, there are several, one of the reasons is because whenever you take a Oyer, which is Meir from a Ma'or, immediately say Oyer, you imply in the mashal a source of light. You say that Oyer comes from a Ma'or. So we have a cloud that any Oyer which comes from a luminary, from a source of light, is Me'ein HaMoer. It has in itself that it partakes and has in itself attributes of the Etzem. Not just that it's comparable or similar in some way, but it carries in itself and has in itself inyonim which are of the Etzem and partake of the Etzem. And that's what we mean, Me'ein HaMoer. And so with that we achieve a most amazing principle and a most amazing, what you might call, a paradox, or two, to use the old Siddiq expression, we almost dance on two chasnas. The Mitzad Echad, we say that the Oyer is not the Etzem cloud, because it's only a Oyer, and Oyer is by definition only a luminescence, it's only a Ha'ora Bilbad. On the other hand, we say that Oyer has in itself an unbelievable Ilui, Maila, that it is Me'ein HaMoer. And that means that there are Meir in the earth certain essential attributes of the Ma'or, at the same time remaining only a Ha'or of a luminescence Bilbad. That's the unbelievable uftu at the Arizal, when it's mostly in the Kabbalah's Arizal, we find this emphasis on the infant Oyer, and particularly in Chassidus Chabad it's developed on with tremendous harachova. This concept of the Oyer being Me'ein Amoya. Be'ikir the Alter Rebbe is the mocky of that svara, of that hadgosha, the union of the me'ein Amoya. And now the Rebbe puts in brackets, Ba'ainu shekachu b'retzoina yizbarach sheyeh b'chinas debekos. So he said, how come the is me'ein Amoya? If it's only his pashtus, then his pashtus, like we said, is not his pashtus ha'or. It ain't teifus shum mokim l'gabi demoya. The word is pashtus indicates that it has no, it's not nogea to the moya at all. So how do you say that the Indian is me'ein Amoya? How can you say it's me'ein Amoya? So the Rebbe said that there's another Indian in oyer, and that is, we say that the oyer is dovuk bimkoiri. It's dovuk be'amoya. In other words, that the whole metzius of the oyer is only its debekas in the moya. And for example, if you take the oyer hashemesh and somehow or another you block off, you pray some blockage between the shemesh and the mekablim, that they don't have any oyer. There's no oyer. Mi sham v'hala ain't oyer, because immediately you've, as it were, severed the devekas of the oyer from the atmos. It doesn't have any it doesn't have any metzius, klau or klau, because the whole inyan from the oyer is only its devekas in the moya. This whole concept of me'ein hamoya comes mitzad another inyan, and that's another, what you might call svara, another koyach, which gives it that, and that's called devekas in the moya. In other words, that the whole metzias of the earth, its whole oifen of its metzias, is alidei dvekas bi'amoya, built in dvekas, ain't metzias la'oya. It doesn't have any metzias klau. Or that inif and the dvekas, that what causes it to be me'ein Amoya. If you're so dovuk in the moya, that's your whole metzias, then you partake of certain inyonim of the moya. Now, because the Eibishter remains betachas hashleimus ha'atzmus, he doesn't give, how do you call it, anybody the whole caboodle. I mean, the ganze shleimus of the atzmus doesn't go into a ha'ora amimeno, and he's not muchach in that klau uklau. And the shemesh, what it gives off for here, is already muchach. Yeah, but ha'ora shaloi. If I'm since it's muchach in the ha'ora, it must give over. Yeah, whatever a ha'ora gives over. Oh, indeed, if an atzmus ain't the vakazeh, the Eibishter is muchuyah. He's not muchach as muzayin mimenu, and nish muchach that it should be which is me'ein Amoya. And therefore the Rebbe puts in brackets that gufa is biratzoina yizbarach. Or that gufa, that there should be a ha'ora, which is me'ein hamoya, and therefore we call it in the Lashon Adi Rizal b'mayuchad b'Lashon Chassidus Chabad, we called it oyer. Or that was because of ratzoina yizbarach, that in which he gave off from himself should be bedvekas itoi, and in a way that is dimion to the concept of oyer. And if says the Rebbe, Das Gufa is all because he wanted it, but even God. So, in other words, not that Cholila, the Eibishter, is mukhrach to give up a ha'ora mimeno b'dimin lo'er. Yeah, in Mamel, it's got two things in it, both the eating from Ma'ain, and where does that Ma'ain come from? Mitzad the Devekah. Mitzad the very etzem Metzias. Oh, the air is manitvi, the koyach hamoya, it ever takes in itself and has in itself certain adinyonim of the ma'or. And that is retaining his body. Not that have to be. Lo haya tzorik dovak hazeh klalo. Ein shum hechreach. Sheyeh dovak hazeh. The Rebbe said that the mokia of the spora of Me'ein Amoya is mitzad the concept, and the veikes, or that goof is retaining his body. And Vamecha nimtzut that the whole ha'ora, the whole hamshocha, but derech oyer b'meyucha, that goof is retaining his body. I say, I'll take him. Kachu rata. Kachu rata. Vamecha, אולי אפילו במדרגה זו אין לו שייך לשאול למה הוא רצה. למה הוא רצה? כי here we've already got certain inyanim which we can say, maybe we can understand lama hu rata, because he wanted it. It should be a initial gilui mimenu, and that through that gilui we should be able to come to him, etc. etc. Maybe we can already say, yeah, it's a svara. Where we say, where do we apply the famous concept, what the Alter Rebbe said? Af a taiv is kein kashia. Dat nisava HaKadosh Baruch Hu liya is like dira b'tachtonim. That's the way mamish from the atzmis, there had to be the yeshar hagashmi, and totally it had to be the ganze gile von the Öhr, the ganze, das weiß man nicht, ma hayalo bise. Aber in die Ine von Öhr, being ma'ein amoya, that isn't itself a certain the moral upklang, as they call in Yiddish. How do you call it? A echo, a sort of a uftu in Pneumius Advorium, and that is that if you're dovuk, then you're ma'ein. And if you're not dovuk, then you're not ma'ein. And the far we see that there's an old saying. I don't know if it's an old saying or exactly where Ma Mekoiroi, aber so vielleicht man sagen, that a chassid has to be a shtick Rebbe. He has to be a piece of the Rebbe. He's got to be like the Rebbe. A chassid. What do you do? That could possibly be. Elamai, if you're dovuk in the Rebbe and you madbik yourself, if you have a dveikis, then there's a certain dveikis brings to me there's a certain similarity klaptzachok. So the emphasis is you're only a horrible and in that gufa a horrible chalusha b'yezim with the ganze duwe. Aber sof kosof, dafki mitad the dveikis, there can be a certain power and a certain and the Father Rebbe wanted so much from the Chassidim. Oh, I have to give out. And a lot of them gave him feedback. But on the one big pitch line that the Rebbe wanted so much, there we find that it gets troublesome. And das ist die Linie von Moshiach, die Linie von die Skala von Moshiach. Oi, Gewalt, Ad Mossad. The Novi hat gesagt, das sei klar, and we see that everything was at gesagt. Somebody called me today and said that he spoke with an important Rav Lo Yifresh Bishmoi. He's not going to tell me who it was. That he told him that he shouldn't talk about Mashiach and you should not say you want Mashiach. You have to just wait and leave it up to the Eibshter. Es soll gar nicht reden von dem und du es nicht trachten von dem, nicht gut nicht.
It's against the Rambam.
That's what the Eibshter want. We see what happens when people think in solche directions. Thousands and thousands of Giyurim taking place in Europe and other places, but there are hyper halacha, mamish hyper koloinyonim, hyper what the Novi said 20 or 30 years ago. Giamfauli shredded to the point there's never been tzeiches azocha against the concept of mihu Yehudi. And he said that it would bring tzaras on the Klal Yisrael. The Rebbe was manaber nevuos bilti teibai. As to Wujavata. And now it's here all happening in front of our eyes. And now you got all these big bunch saying, what are we going to do about me, Yehudi? But like they're worried that it's coming into their pekel. It's entering their backyard. If you say to him, but the Lubavitcher, he shot it 20 or 30 years ago. Fury and brimstone descend upon you. How dare you say such a door connected with Apikurat and the users auch about that, noch it's auch about that. Waffen mit solche phrases, mit solche. Chef Yiracha. Anyway, so we get back to the fact that Dafki, I don't know how I got onto that, but I do know how I got onto it. So anyway, he says that the inner from Retainer is Baruch Shia begins at Weike, the Doskuf is Retainer. Aber loy mitzad Achman, the Rebbe says. Oh, it's not mitzad their own themselves that they have this inyan von Ein Sof. And remember, that's the unbelievable thing what the Alter Rebbe achieved. The Alter Rebbe achieved a thing which basically, you might say it's a miscane. It all begins somewhere. It's the oil, just a horrible bad. And it's got this unbelievable it's very much like him. Or we're not mitalatzmi, not in itself, because he wants, and doesn't the Ramah Mipo, Panog is out, and the Rebbe said that is right, 1,000%. There's a certain inyan, and nitzchim baratzon abayr, the tachen nitzchim, of a man it vitzad ratzon abayr. In that, the Rebbe stands with the Ramah 100%. We'll see later on, the Maskana is picked as with the Ramah Mipo. But in that inyan, yeah, Amam, kommt euch. Remember, that's one inyan von Ein Sof. One inyan is Ein Sof to its status, as you might say. One Ein Sof in the very presence of the Eibishter is Ein Sof, meaning in what you might almost say in expansion and in measurement, expansion. And Gilui Ein Sof man. Meaning, Bligvu in the Etzem is Pashtas. Even though the word is Pashtas, doesn't really imply. So that's one inyan. Now comes along the Rebbe and he says another inyan. What does it mean when you say Ein Sof? What is it a taich, or even kitzat omuk, how you might call conceptually yoter? What is the inyan von Ein Sof? Va'beish inyan Ein Sof shehu bligvu mamish. Not just in Gilui ad kamas is a mitgaleh. No, Ein Sof mamish, hainu, that means to say, she'ein loima be'ezi inyan proti. You can't say any specific characteristic or inyan in him. Ulatayre be'ezi hagbala she'iyeh. Or you could describe him, or how do you call it, picture him in any way which would in any way limit his being. Loima shehu b'chinas u'madrega kazu. Oh, the Eivish has got this and this, or he is this and this madrega, isn't he? I always these for him of tremendous interest, but it could be you're only looking at them out of wanting to grasp into something. So it's difficult. We can just look into the Sefer. I know it's difficult. In Ein Sof shehu bligvu mamish v'ainu she'ein loima be'ezi inyan proti l'tar be'ezi hagbala loima shehu b'chinas u'madrega kazu, that the Eibishter has such a madrega, oi b'chinas madrega kazu, or another form of madrega. No matter how elevated and tremendously you might say it, afilu b'toyarei inyonim ha'yosha mufloi v'ha'yosha nailim. In other words, you can't say about the Eibishter, even like we saw earlier, there's such a thing as Asogas Hashlila. Yeah, that Asogas Hashlila, by saying he's not this and he's not that, you can get terribly high. But we saw that was also only in the Ur, and only in the Ur how it is. Yeah, but there are Seivev, Muvdal Yotev, Od Muvdal. Oh, but that's only in the Ur. Oh, but in the Eibishter himself, you can't say, that you can't be Shoil Mimenu Eizadvarim. Because if you do, then you hint at a certain level. But that level is Ein V'Efes L'Kavi Amit Yisa Hat. And therefore he says, Ayosha Mufloim, V'Ayosha Naidim, V'Af Loi B'Pchinas Bli Gvul, U'B'Pchinas Gvul. This is a Chiddush Nifla. He says that you can't even say, Mitzad the Amitis Musik of Ein Sof, you can't say that he's Bli Gvul. And you can't say he's Gvul. Wait a minute, you can't say Gvul. It was then. What are you supposed to say here? Because immediately you say that he's Bli Gvul, then you limit him. Yeah? You say that he's Bli Gvul, and he can only be Bli Gvul by definition. So you say, no, well, he's got taken from Gvul. So he's like Gvul is Gornish. What's it Gvul? So you have to say, oh no, he's Bli Gvul. So decide what you want. And if we have to say he's Loi Bli Gvul for Loi Gvul, L'mayla Gam Miseva, V'Gam Miseva. In other words, that he's not that and he's not that. In other words, but notice that I said he's not that and he's not that. In other words, we're using already shlilos in all the shlilas that we could possibly use. In other words, we're saying that he's also the shlila of shlila. You go as high as you can in shlila, then I'll just wait for you, pulling my beard. As soon as you get to the end of all the shlilas, you can say, I'll say, oh, who shalom is that? The shlila. That's what he says. You can't possibly, in the atzmus, negate anything from him. Because when you negate, you end up with a certain maskana. Therefore, you can't possibly keep negating. You can only do that in things which are now telling me. Or being him, you can't do that. He just bears within himself every possibility, everything. So true, says the Rebbe. What do you mean he bears himself everything? What is it? So he said, "B'chinas hayechoiles, v'lo b'chinas poel chas v'sholem, af lo b'chinas koyach, shu gam ken kepoel k'may shenem b'maki macher, ki im b'chinas hayechoiles." Here we see this amazing concept. Here we run up against what you might call the Emes pitch line of all this new concept of Ein Sof. The new concept of Ein Sof is omnipotence. Now when you say omnipotent, then you mean Yechoiles. Now the word Yechoiles is an expression which means mitzad the etzem, and it means, even that you're talking what could be, not what is. And so when you, for example, if you say about let's take it in the human sphere for a second. If you say that you talk about the yechoiles of a person, then you're talking even beyond his koiches what we call his koiches hanailim beyoisa. His koiches haki elyonim. Haki nailim, when you say yechoiles, then you're not talking about anything that he's revealed or is likely to reveal necessarily. You just say that he could do that. It's within his possibility to do that. And the emes is that by a yid, it's also pretty, it gets very close to being also almost untouchable. Because that's what we saw the other night, that kol echad mechuyev loima, masai, yagiu masai lemasai, avoisai Avram Yitzchak Yank. That everybody's mechuyev to say, when am I going to reach my deeds like the deeds of Avram Yitzchak Yank? And the Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya that Avram, he was, who knows, hein a Merkava, oid Yosef said, the Merkava van Atzila, so how's a mensch going to say Ad Matai v'Jenjen? El mitzad the immediate shleimus of the neshama, he can do it. A yid can do it. Mitzad the shleimus immediate nishmatai, you name it, he's got it. And the only reason that we don't reveal all these inyanim, mitzad all sorts of strange balabati sheshvaret. What can I do? How many? I have to do something else. And then you meet up with a yid that he doesn't reckon with those inyanim, and he just says, "I don't have to do anything. I got to do what the Eivishter says. I got to bring Dvar Elokim and Dvar Elokeinu Yokum La'ad. I got to bring it into the world." And that's a Rebbe. A Rebbe is a mensch. What he doesn't say, I can't manage this and I can't manage that and I can't manage something else, but he just says, I got a neshama, what am I supposed to be doing? So you just say, well, wait a minute, that's already beyond your capacity. So no, I got a neshama elikis, name it, we do it. And that's the Taish Yechoiles. Yechoiles is mudal mitad the giluim and mudal mitad the inim von poyal rochik mei, meaning a poyal. Although on the other hand, you can't say it's not really there. It is mitad what mitad the shleimus ati And the etzem, it's there. And if the even Yechoilis is an amazing thing. Yechoilis is mitzad the etzem, not mitzad the gilui makinayim. Or what the neshama, if we talk about it, Mishra Ha'adam, not what the neshama has revealed ad koi, or what it, in its highest possible forms, can be assumed on what it's done ad koi. But Yechoilis is literally unlimited. What you can really. Right? And that's a famous story of the Baal Shem Tov, where he told the tale that you can sometimes hear things from a goy and you can learn. And the tale is very brave. He says, well, I'm going to learn from a Polish Polak, or I'm going to learn something besides that. And the Gona Geonim was a type. I only learned from Yidden, and Bekoishi from Europe was I'm going to learn something like that. I have to learn from a goy. So he walked in the street, the famous story, and there was a little goy with his donkey in the mud. I've told you already, I've done it how many times the story. And the guy said to the Yidden, the Tillis was walking with his Talmidim, and he said to them, Juden, he said, come and help me pull my donkey out of the mud. And so they saw it was taking a muddy piece of work. So they looked up and they just shrugged their shoulders and walked on. So all of a sudden he gives like a shred, and God, he says, Juden, can't leave me like this. So the Tillis said, if you would look at us, you would see that we can't do that. We're not into that sort of thing, just don't do it, we can't do it. So he said, oh no, he said to them in Ukrainish, he said, it's not what nicht was you can't nicht. He said, it's what you wilt nicht. He said, it's not what you can't, this is what you don't want. So when the Tillis said that, he just froze to the spot. It's not what I can't, it's what I don't want. He realized that he'd learned the whole sort of Avodas Hashem all over from the beginning. And he heard it from a postal little guy with his donkey in the mud. So he said, he said, okay, you guys, he said, we're going to daven mincha and we're going back to where we came from. They said, we're going home. He said, no, he said, now we're going back to the Rebbe. He said, now I understand my Rebbe. Jetzt verstehe ich how much I need the Baal Shem Tov. People like that. And it's not what you can't. Canning you can do it. Atayachol hako. And that's what the Rebbe said here. I feel by the Eibishter, the Emse Bilti Hagbola is Yechoile. And it's not Puyo. What he's already done, that's gone. What he's already done basically for them gone. And he said, I feel a little bit Koya. Not even potentially what he could do. And the truth is, Shuhu Gam came Puyo. Like we had it when he writes of Muhammad, it's interesting. The Rebbe doesn't send you to the beginning of the Hemshech. It's right in the first Maimon. Oh, sorry, in the second Maimon, the Maimon Shabbos Tshuva. Dotis Mavai, the whole Indian, that Lamaila ain't a poyo, ain't a kuya, chosa poyo. So we have a classic example. The Rabbi Shurim Vazmanim. We sort of cobweb a bit in certain inyanim. But don't state this close. The Lamaila, it's not trying to say that the thing's potential and then it becomes actual. If anything's potential, it's automatically actual by the Eibishter. Diburi shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu choshiv ma'aser. Machshati shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu choshiv ma'aser. He doesn't think and then do. If he thinks, it's already done. Kaviyah. Therefore, this is the said over there, the Yechoiles is not l'mayla mi'apoil, because what he's done is gone. It's like what he could do. I say, well, maybe like the koil and the poil. I said the poil and the koil is all the same thing. L'mayla. Even tell me the Yechoiles, and the Yechoiles is absolutely who mushlal mi hakoil. He said, you go as high as you want, beyond your whole capacity to be shoilo, and he'll be mushlal mi mizeh. In other words, Zainian ain't safe. Shlilas kola to Shlilas kola to yarim. The negation of all the descriptive terminologies. Shlilas hagvul, v'shlilas habligvul, v'shlilas hachiru, v'shlilas hashlila. So it was Shlilas habligvul, Shlilas hagvul, Shlilas Chiyuv is positivity, Veshlila is Ashlila, and the negation of all the negation. In other words, even negation does not achieve anything. That's the way you reach the emes of positivity, by just cancelling out all possible inyanim. Then you reach the emes of positive. What the emes of positive? Yesh lahakoil. Pil diploid. That's the second beer in the word Ein Sof. In other words, Ein Sof means every possible possibility. Akoil, Yechilas Atzmus, or Yechilas Atzmus means mamish, just the ability, anything, just believe, ability to be mataya. I feel with that shlila, ki al yoino. That's another bechina and another musag, another definition of the word Ein Sof. And that's the immediate definition. And if I said the Rebbe, the calls there, in Ushayat rak biatzmus mamish. You can only say that, mamish biatzmusay, shemetziusay miatzmusay. Shehu anim ha'amiti, she'ena bebchines metzias nimtza. Ratzein elaima, shehu nimtza loy bebchines metzias ולא בבחינס מתיר. בזה דווקא שייך לא עם האמיתיס in an Ein Sof canal. That's the concept that we meet often the Loshen in the early Sfarim, and particularly in certain places. And that's what the Alter Rebbe brings over there in the famous Igeras HaKodesh, that the Indian van Atzmusay is Borach, Metziusay mi Atzmusay. In other words, his being, what he is not mitzad any other koyach, or any other inyan cholilo, or any other sibo, or any other whatever way you talk about a causatory factor, or a ila, or a. That's what he says over there. Yeshu Yisburg, Yesha Eino Olol, Mishum Sibo Akademus Lo Yisborach, Ela Matziusay Miatzmusay. Yeah, that's what the Alter writes over there. He's not all, he's not caused or brought about from any causatory inyan. No, his being is purely mitzad his own. So, Metziusay mi atzmusay. And therefore he said, Hu animto amiti she'ena b'chinas metzius nimto. He said, therefore he is the one and only genuine metzius. Yeah, hu animto amiti, the to be found truthfully, the truthful to be found one is the Eibishter. She'ena b'chinas metzius nimto. He's not in the normal metzius of something which is to be found, but he's beyond all things which are to be found, because he is the immediate. Because what does it mean, Metzius Nimtza? Metzius Nimtza means that it was caused or brought about, or it came out from something. But he is not like that. He is the Amitius, Metzius, what he's the Nimtza Amiti, not in that Oifen. And that's what we mean by saying that he's Metzius from its own soul. And that's what the Rambam calls in the first statement. In Hilchos Yisod HaTorah, the Rambam says that Kol Dvarim Shebintayim Vein B'Shamayim V'Oretz Lo Nimtzau Ela Mi'amitas Himata. All the Nimtzaim, all the things which we find them, and we call them existing beings, they all come about Mi'amitas Himata Oi, from the genuineness and emes of being found and being existingness of him. In other words, that his being found and existence is another form altogether. It's immediate hamatziyah, immediate shimotoi. Everything else is nimtza. Over here is immediate nimtza, immediate shimotoi. Well, these are what the Rebbe says here, that the inner from Atzmus is Metziusay Me'atzmusay. What that means, he's the to be found Aemasa, and not he's a Metzius Nimta. And therefore he says, Nimta Leibe V'chinas Metzius. And therefore, Davki B'zeh Shaykh Amitis Inyan Ein Seif. He's not a Matzir. He's there, but he's not a Matzir. Is it that type of being, or that is a Amitis Inyan Ein Seif? That is a Shlilas Kol HaMatzir.
Isn't Ein Sof still?
Huh?
Isn't Ein Sof? Ein Sof is still a name.
So therefore, we see that here we see that the Ramak. So we have to say, I mean, what you're hinting at is the question which now presents itself, and you're right to a certain extent. But maybe we just read the brackets, and then we'll come to what you say. So now says the Rebbe, Ubazeh Yumtak. Dafki in Metzius in Matzmusei, she'ena b'chinas Metzius nimta, dafki b'zeh shayach lo mamitis inyan ein seif, ובזה יומתק גם כן מה שקוס מוקים אחר, שאינו שייך לא עם הבוי אין סביב, לפי שאין לו תארוי. So he says, the Adarabba, Shem ein סביב, כנ"ל הוא עניין שלילס כל התוירים לגמרי. So he said that there's certain Sforim what they object to the word Ein Seif, because they say that the word Ein Seif is a form of a Toyar. Ein Seif. So they said if you call the Eivish Ein Seif, that's also a description, like with bleak wool. We said you can't say bleak wool either. So if you say Ein Seif, then you're describing him with a certain term. That's what they time. So the Rebbe said, no, Lafi, what we've just been mapping, particularly Lafi, the Pirush Hasheni in Ein Seif, Davkedin, if an Ein Seif is the emissary way, to be Matayim, because the word Ein Seif is Shlilas Kol HaToyarim. It takes away all the possible ways, and on the contrary, when you say Ein Seif, you mean he's not Matuah with anything. If I'm going to get up the Kashi, you're being Matayah him. No, Fakir, the word Ein Seif is Davked the Shlilas HaToyarim. Pili place. Well, the Fisa comes that the Ramak has got a good point over there. I mean, we're developing an amazing case for the Ramak. Freitag over the Shaila, in the Chayba say, we have to go back here to the Shaila of a wooden Ein Light, should be even better. I mean, Ein Lachanami. Ein Seif is gewaldig. I mean, it's tremendous. Ein Seif is tremendous. And Ein Seif tells me all these in on him, but upon him, one way or another, you're anyway to a certain extent talui in the view of Ein Lo Tchila, Kadmon. That's what adds a certain dimension to the concept of Ein Seif. And I would say, why Davkedin of an Ein Seif? So it seems to me that we could say B'derech Efshar. I found a view b'zeh, אז צריך כמו ליבון הדברים, אבל maybe we could say the even good there. There's a famous shara that occurs in Tzidus. It's put down at the end of the Hemshech Hecholzu. At the end of that Hemshech Hecholzu, right near the end, where it starts getting really thick, all the way up to it's very Vedic, amazing, it's rich, but the last couple of chapters there before it stops, it doesn't finish, it just stops. There's a tremendous number of difficult concepts right at the end. So over there, the Rebbe says, why don't we say Hashem Yochid? It's a famous kashi. We should say Hashem Yochid and not Hashem Echad. Because Berega, when you say Yochid, you mean he's the one and only Matthias. And that's what remains the Maskana. He is the one and only Matthias. Why do we say Hashem Echad? So for the Rebbe, Hashem Yochid tells you the truth much more directly, what you might call a direct punch in the nose, as you might say. It tells you much more directly. However, when we say Hashem Echad, we really mean Hashem Yochid. We really know what then. We mean to say with a bigger chiddush. Because when you say Hashem Yochid, you could imply, Melachatchila, really nothing ever came about. Now, people might get the impression that Yiddishkeit Tainus, that nothing's really there. That's a two-is. Because written Bereshit Bora Hashem, Bereshit Bora Elokim, Es Hashemayim V'Zorot, Bora is Yesh Miah, something's there, Mashu. Rotzen Aboira, something came about. At a fire, what I'm saying is a much greater finish. I'm saying that even though these things came about, Al Pi Torah, they don't disturb the fact that Hashem Yochi. And therefore I say Echad, because Echad implies that there is something else, and it's bottled to the other. Yeah, but Echad became the Kavan as Hashem Yochid. You state in the Echad, you guys want the Echad, so you got it. Hij staat, right near the sofa of the Hemshech Echad, so he states that. Plus, there's another whole series of chapters, if you understand, I'll give you, a nice prize. There's a whole piece of it just before the end. This goes up to Takan. Maar op die gezegd. Maar op hem, als hij staat tot at the end of the Echad, Ulai Yesh Lema, that's what the Ramak would time. Ein Chanami, Hashem, Ein Lo Tchila, that tells you everything. But when you say Ein Lo Tchila, you don't really give the whole amazing concept that you've taken into account all sorts of other inyonim. And even though he's a Matzias Bilti Nimtza, and he's a Mitias Himotza'oi, but that doesn't imply that Al Pi Torah are upon him, they're not other forms of Matzias. When I say Ein Seif, I mean that all these other inyonim, are mushlal. In other words, that Ein Chanami, Ein Seif, Kishmoi, is Ein something. It's a shlila. It's not the immediate description of it. It does that because there's so many things that you could maybe hang on to, and we want to take them away. Just like we want to be shoyl the inif and the nivroim. In order to be shoyl the nivroim, we have to say that they're there, basically. And well, he said, Indian can, ulai yesh lema b'derech, possibility in b'derech efsha, we could maybe say. Well, if he's that the rabbis have made an amazing case for the Ramak. Hu shlilas kol atoyarim legamrei, avo b'chinas ha'oyer, v'chol ma shenetzo mimenu einu shayach lema b'chinas ein tzif, b'chinas umadrega ha'mitiyas shebazeh kanal. He said that in the Inif and anything which was Mishkal, here the Ramak gets a little bit slightly different from Tzedus, because he would say that even in the Oyer you can't really use the word Ein Tzif, because it's already a beginning, and it's got its own particular inyonim, even though it's Ein Tzif in the sense of his pashtas, Berotzen Aboire, Kiloshen Arama. So he said you can't really say a Mitias Inif and Ein Tzif. And that's where we'll see that Chassidus Chabad and some of the other Mukabalim are going to differ with him al Nekuda Zu. The Rebbe said he has a very good point. And so now we're going to start off where he begins, where it slightly tends now to verge away from the Shitta of the Alter Rebbe. And that's what we'll see in the coming Shir, Mil Tashem. But it begins with the expression Rakli Yesha Oiru Me'in Amoya Ve'esh Boi Koyach Amoya Kavish Kos B'Geras HaKoidesh. Geras HaKoidesh is already Alter Rebbe. That's what it's telling you. They already start to move in now to the, what you might call the territory, the Alter Rebbe Shittas, and that's going to build us a whole different Koyach as we go up, a whole different picture as we go up, as we go along. So we'll see about that in future and developing and coming episodes.